Hi there guys, Mobro here. I just wanted to create a shorter version of my last video. That one was a bit long and I just felt that I should create a more condensed version. So what I have here is a VB program that takes in an input file and creates an image on the screen based on the data. The image that I'm going to be creating is the map of the Earth, and the file contains latitudes and longitudes for various locations on Earth. Okay, so my file contains hundreds and thousands of records, and each record uh, translates to a dot on my screen. And that, in effect, will give a visual representation of the data that's in the file. Okay, so I'm just going to run this initially with two countries just to show you the setup. So the two countries that I've run is Argentina and Australia. Okay, so Argentina sits over here, and this is Australia. Okay, this is relatively how we know the countries to be, and if you want to compare it to a known map, I'll just show you quickly. Argentina, this is Argentina down here, and you'll see it compares pretty accurately to the actual country. So the data that I have is relatively accurate, and I'm mapping it correctly because of the results that we're getting. And if we compare that to Australia, we see that also compares quite nicely. Okay, so this is the first representation that I wanted to show you. The other one, I'm going to run the same data in the other version of the map that I have. Okay, so this version assumes that the North Pole is in the middle, and on the outer edges is the South Pole, and here is Australia, and here is Argentina, and this would be comparable to another version of the map that I've seen out there, sometimes referred to as the flat Earth map. And what this is, so you see Australia relatively the same size, even though Australia as we know it doesn't actually look like that. And the reason that Australia looks stretched is simply because the longitude lines are getting wider out on the edges. Just to give you an example, if you had a country touching the 60th longitude here and the 45th longitude here, so say it was touching both of these lines and it was a circle in the middle, if you pulled that country out to the outer edges, it would still need to touch the 60 and the 45 longitudes, but you notice that it would be huge as compared to when it was down here. So that is the inherent problem in representing data in this way, because lines are not parallel, and that's what's happening with Australia and Argentina also. It looks like it's stretched, but if you look at the general location of these countries, you see Australia is close to 155 longitude, and over here maybe 110 longitude, and the Tropic of Cancer is going through the middle. And if you compare that to this version, you'll see that over here 110 longitude and 155 longitude is quite accurately represented, and Tropic of Cancer is going through the middle just like it was in the other. And also Tropic of Cancer is going through the tip of Argentina, and it lies between -50 and -70. So if you look over here, it's going through the tip of Argentina, the Tropic of Cancer is, and it's at -50 and -70. So the data is represented exactly like it should be, but you're seeing stretching. Okay, and that is what the main problem with representing it like this. It cannot be accurate because there is a lot of skewing going on. Australia actually is not that wide. If you were to bring Australia in towards the center, Australia would take up literally this portion of the screen, and that would be tiny as compared to the way it is now, and that is the inherent problem here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to run the entire file so I'm just going to change it to be the full file instead, and then I'll run it again. So now the data is going to be mapped to the screen, the entire data. Okay, so that's thousands and hundreds of thousands of records are now going to be mapped in the form of countries and continents. The data is being loaded. It should take another few seconds to load. And then my program does go through it one pixel at a time, but I'm displaying it one country at a time. So you're going to see countries pop up one at a time in alphabetical order. Okay, so there you see Australia and Argentina, as we saw earlier, along with the other countries. So I'll just let this load. Okay, and now that's the entire file loaded, and you can see it does represent the Earth as we know it. And if I compare that to the map that I showed you earlier, you see that it looks almost identical. So if you look at the South America, North America, Mexico, Canada, it looks pretty comparable. And on this side, you see Africa, Russia, China, India, Australia, all the countries represented accurately. One thing you will notice is that some areas have been separated, and that separation is not evident here. So apparently I do have updated data. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm loading the same file into the other version of the map, namely the one that has the North Pole in the middle. Okay, so there you see Argentina and Australia. Okay, there you see Canada, and you can tell right away Canada appears quite small. As a matter of fact, if you compare it to Australia, Australia looks bigger than Canada, and we all know that that is not the case, and therefore that should prove that representing the map in this way skews countries beyond recognition, and it's just a plain fallacy to represent it this way, because lines of longitude, when they're not parallel, you're not going to get an accurate reading. And that's what's happening here. You can also see Russia. It almost looks like it's curving around an invisible, scale, invisible line. You can see there it's curving around the Arctic Circle, and that just sounds absurd for a country to do that for invisible lines. Okay, so this now is the entire file loaded. And now, okay, what shocked me the first time I ran this was that when I compared it to this map of 1892, it compares exact. Okay, so if you look at South America, it looks exactly the same. The relative size and position of the United States is the same. Canada, with all the islands in general, is the same. Africa is the same. One thing I have over this map is that I have more up-to-date data. There are many countries that were non-existent during the creation of this map, and they are now appearing here. Okay, you can also see what's behind this little tool. The actual areas behind there can now be seen. So I in effect have a more up-to-date version of this same map that's out there. But one thing I will Okay, you can notice also Australia, I shared with you earlier that it's stretched. Even though the longitude and latitude lines are represented accurately, it looks stretched, and you can see the same stretching here. So this is the same map with all the stretching inherent within it. Okay, now if I was to look at this map and try and explain what this is, I see this nothing more than a typical globe that's been that you're looking at from the very top, on top of the North Pole, and then in effect you're opening it up from the bottom and flattening it out again. If you try to do this with an orange peel and you try to open the orange peel from the bottom and then try to spread it out, you will notice that it does not spread out evenly. You will see gaps between the various cuts that you make, and that's why representing it this way cannot be accurate, because those gaps are in effect fall between countries, and then when you stretch out the countries, you'd have to stretch out the countries to fill in those gaps, and that's exactly what's happening here. So representing a map with longitude lines that are not parallel is inaccurate in my opinion, and I just wanted to share that with you. I'm actually very happy to share a more up-to-date version of this same map, but in my opinion it is not the flat earth map at all. It is just another version of the globe, and that's all this is. Okay, and I will try and do another video at some point, but until then, take care and goodbye.